First off, I want to thank the Continental Club and Steve Wertheimer and Celeste for having us. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you guys hosting us today. Please tip your bartenders. I mean it. We got a lot of hats, guys. So if you guys could please take these things home, because we don't want to take them home. Especially the Twitter cowboy hats that are just over the top. Take some pictures with them on, because we want them to sponsor to get us again next year. I want to thank Dale Watson. Very, very, wow. You know what I mean? That was awesome. I'm going to try to get this really quick because I just want to see the Super Suckers play. So, I'm going to try to make this panel as fast as possible because I know most of you just are here for the drinks and the music. But we're going to try to cover some topics that might be relevant for you today. We're going to when I told my boss about this panel topic, he said, it's such an old thing. Why are you talking about that again? And I said, listen, there's a way for us to tackle this and examine it, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to be talking about newsrooms, real-time communication with our very esteemed panel here. So I've got, what's your name? Darrell Jursa? Darrell Jursa from Omnicom Media Group. I've got Bryan, you showed up. I didn't know that you were coming. Bryan Jones from Critical Mass. Kanur Patel from Twitter. I got Ben Dietz from Vice. And Will Platt hyphenated Higgins from Facebook. So I'm going to shut up and let you guys start talking because I'm probably the dumbest person in this room. So a few years ago, we got on the topic of, hey, newsrooms, war rooms, you got to be in real-time communication. Did it work? Does it work? Does it work for brands? And can you guys give us some examples of when it does work and when it doesn't?
So I'll start.
You can take this microphone right here.
So I'll start because I think Twitter has really, in a lot of marketers' mind, is that platform where you need the big war room to activate. And while it is a great strategy in some cases, it's not the only strategy for our platform. So the value of real-time communication is making a connection with the consumer in an unexpected moment using something that matters to them as the signal, right? So maybe that thing that matters to them is when the lights go out at the Super Bowl, or Pharrell Williams comes on stage with an amazing hat on, like the Twitter hats that you all should be wearing right now. But that's only going to happen once in a while. That's lightning in a bottle, right? And it is effective to get incredible earned reach on a single piece of content created in the moment. But real-time connections are made every single day through smart planning and using data as a source to sort of surface those moments that matter, so that if it is activating around a live event, you can be very planful and create content ahead of time and get it approved to create real-time connections in the moment. Or maybe that real-time moment is every day, and it's just surprising someone when they're talking about looking for a recipe and serving the perfect piece of content in that moment.
Does anybody want to talk about when it doesn't work?
That'll be me.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean, I'll just talk about it. By the way, it is, for anyone who's interested in hosting a panel, these are the briefing notes here. So we should get that photographed and put out on any kind of platform. That's a high quality series of notes there. Yeah. Look, I think your question is, I think what you're basically getting at is did we over rotate on newsrooms and so on? And I think the answer is probably yes. I think there's a lot of value in real-time communication, a lot of value in real-time news and so on. I think if you are a political party, which is where the notion came from, you need a reaction room or war room, whatever you want to call it. And I think if you're Modi in India and Obama and Bernie Sanders and the rest of them, you've got one and it's working for you because stuff's changing on a daily basis that you need to react to or you need to capitalize upon. I think if you're if you're working with a lot of our clients' brands, I'm not sure that you necessarily need one. And I think one of the things that's happening is our clients are under a lot of pressure. The headlines you see all the time about clients restructuring, which is code word for letting people go. They're putting a lot of focus on non-value-added dollars, which is a lot of focus on cost squeezing. And in that world, and in a world where everyone is laser focused on growth, everything's getting scrutinized. And so if you're doing these things and people can't attribute real business outcomes and value to them, then they're probably going to come under threat. I think if you're a brand that's doing a lot with live stuff, if you're doing stuff around the Oscars, the Cricket World Cup, the Super Bowl or whatever, yeah, I think there's a lot of value in live stuff that brings people closer to the experience. But for many of our brands, I'm not sure that you necessarily need to invest the money against the traditional construct of a war room.
I mean, from a tech perspective, I mean, I think there's thousands of platforms out there. A lot of them doing some great work, a lot of them not so much. I think integrating those pieces in, there's a lot of features and functionality around that. But I find probably the biggest hurdle in working with clients is more around business transformation. And how do you get clients to understand that in order to leverage this data, real-time communications, personalization, you have to have the infrastructure and support. You have to be able to have people that can analyze and understand that data, be able to create action items against it, and then push that out to the appropriate audience. So I think that's where just the organizational readiness of clients is where I find probably the biggest gap around this, not really on the technology side.
This question is actually going to be for Vice. And you can kind of put this all together for us. So you guys create, 6,000 pieces of content a day?
7,000.
7,000 is up. It's up 1,000 from last year. What do you guys do with all that? And who's it for? And how are they using it?
Okay, so that's an approximate aggregation of all of the different pieces of content that we create across 11 standalone vertical channels, a television network called Viceland in the US and in Canada, soon to be in the UK, soon to be elsewhere. And then the permutations of that content across all of the socials. Because we believe ultimately that we should be talking to our audience in the voice they speak to each other in and delivering them content wherever they want to consume it. So it doesn't matter to us if they're on Facebook, if they're on Twitter, or if they're on Vice.com, or if they're on Joe's blog, which is excellent. You guys check it out, really good. What matters is that they get the story, right? And as long as that story is salient, then it delivers value to them, it delivers value to the brands that surround it and support it, and everybody wins. Now, the thing to me that strategy points out with the idea of newsrooms and war rooms generally is that it shouldn't just be about how we react in the moment. It's how you derive the maximum amount of value from a piece of content. And to me, the thing that's interesting about having a war room or newsroom on the ground in Rio during the Olympics or during the World Cup or during the election cycle or whatever it is that you should be able to open your doors and welcome in your influencers, your partners, the public, and say to them, come in and help us create stuff here. And we have, by virtue of this war room, an engine to push that stuff out in whatever form it goes out. That's the economic multiplier, and that's why it's an interesting thing. I think, though, to Will's point, or actually maybe to Bryan's point, the problem with them is lawyers. Simply put, if I were a smart media company, which clearly I'm not, I should be investing in a new kind of law training that speeds up approvals and has a more fungible understanding of how content and communication needs to work through the present day. Because what happens is there are tons of great ideas that just get destroyed because standards and practices can't deal with them or because they can't get approved fast enough. That's a condition, and I think that's one of the things that's really holding this whole thing back. That was my other answer from the previous question.
Great answer. Does anyone else want to chime in? You've been kind of quiet, Darrell. Darrell, you've been kind of really quiet over there.
Points were made. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay, everybody wants to understand, now you got Periscope, Facebook Live. We want to talk about, Meerkat kind of disappeared. I don't know what happened to it, but you guys have your own platforms. How does this play, these live platforms, how do they play into this newsroom live? How do brands plan for this? How are you guys going to monetize it? Can you tell us about this? Because you guys have been really quiet.
So
sorry.
I'll jump in on Periscope. So Periscope, for those of you that don't know, is a live streaming app where you can basically pull your phone out and show the world what's happening through live video, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And while it's live and we see users use Periscope, regular people use Periscope to break live moments that are happening to them, may it be, the rally fighting in Chicago because of Trump, or a live amazing moment in sports, brands are using it in a very planful way to understand, hey, we have this big moment, this high attention moment. We have access that people are hungry for, like, Doritos during the Super Bowl. They use Periscope, but they plan to use Periscope to show people what's happening when the commercials are on in the stadium, right? Didn't you ever wonder what's going on when everyone else is watching on TV and they're watching the great commercial? But they planned to do that. They created a live connection to provide unprecedented access and then created visibility and attention on a platform like Twitter. So while it's a live platform, you as a brand should really be thinking about it in ways that you can plan for ahead of time, get the approvals, set it up so you create that live connection.
Facebook Live, your rebuttal.
No rebuttal. No rebuttal. Very similar story. We're seeing huge engagement. People have an appetite for this stuff, and they stay with it longer, which we were surprised about. Very, very long, almost 3x. We're seeing almost 3x viewing time. People staying with this stuff.
Who's watching it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna watch it.
Well, I pulled up our live dashboard. We have a live dashboard internally where you can see who's going live and the number of people following. And I was curious. It's a similar question. There was a politician, a Uruguayan politician, who was going live. There was a Mexican comedian. There were a bunch of teenagers with seemingly large followings around in the gaming world. I think it is hard. It is hard to comprehend it until you actually get in and see what people are interested in. I think the key
Is it too old?
I didn't want to say that, but I mean it would be you and I both there. But I think it is. I think we are going to start seeing this much more common, much more commonly. From a branding point of view, we asked a lot, like, what are the best practices? And the truth is, we haven't figured out what the best practices are. What we tend to do is look and see how real people use it first. That's always been a good guide for us. And then work from there on what we can extrapolate from there to give guidance to brands. We've seen some brands activate. I mean, it doesn't matter what we say, brands are going to get on board and start doing it anyway, and we would encourage that. Like, why not just do it and start learning? There's no blueprint to drop on it. We've seen this with Chevy and Kate Spade and Target and so on.
Darrell, how are you going to work with these guys, with your product? I mean, you're from Omnicom. There's a product called Story Connect or something like that?
Yeah, it's amazing. You've heard of it, huh? It's, well, I'll tell you, I'm listening. So backing into the conversation, we had technology. We're just talking about the tools, right? We talked a little bit about the process, finding like a new way of clearing things, clearance and all that. The people part is incredibly important too. And I think that, before we even get to the tool or how we clear a piece of content, how we brief a creative, the idea is, look, if you're going to set these systems up, whether you call it a newsroom or you call it whatever, you've got to be able to plan for those moments in between the moments, right? And so the people part is incredibly important because you need people who are analytical, but people who can also say, you know what, stop. You're messaging, there's people talking, don't interrupt them, right? There's brands that are supposed to be on all the time. There's brands that should just not come anywhere near that, but they can pull in all these great insights around the technology and the process of things so that they could find those right moments and then jump in. And maybe you spend 12 months listening or 12 months just monitoring things and taking a look at it. So I think the key is working with the right people to do that. So yes, it is legal clearance, but then it's also figuring out, when you say in a client meeting, you know what, maybe not a good idea to do these tentpole events. Maybe we just listen and see what's up, and then in the next 6 months we decide where to go. It's daring, but we've had to do that.
Does anybody else have a thought? No?
I would just add, I think I think what you're poking at is there a danger that everybody runs to the gates and say, we've got to do live, do nothing but live from now on, and I think that would be definitely...
Seems like he's really high on it.
definitely not what we'd be recommending. Yeah, very, very high on it from a user engagement point of view. From a branding point of view, I think that would be. I've always thought, I grew up in the advertising newspapers when I first started in the agency business, and a newspaper is not, contrary to what you might imagine when you stop and think about it, it's not all live content. It's not all content that just happened. There's a whole series of pieces and columnists and so on, editorial in there that is topical, it's highly relevant, but it's not all happening now. I think if you over-rotate towards this stuff, it's not in the best interest of people. We certainly find that with our own algorithm. Our algorithm is not what we call a fire hose algorithm. It's not all real time. It's ranked based on what people find relevant.
I love that point. So I also grew up in journalism, and even though I was expected to file copy every single day and power, longer and longer news cycles, shorter and shorter news cycles, a lot of the content you see that's live, might it be the live sports game or Saturday Night Live, it's been planned, right? They created their box, they understand these are the segments, right? Saturday Night Live is a live show, but they have the same format, and they've had that same format for, 40 years? It's always the same opening monologue, middle break, 2 musical acts, they all hug at the end and come out, right? You can only do live if you have a really good plan, and that doesn't change for brands.
I'm going to turn the subject to messaging. We see the ability for brands to talk directly to their target and their customers, their users. Can each of you guys describe, obviously Twitter and Facebook, you guys have a different take on it because you have applications that can enable this communication. Can everybody tell me what this is going to look like in a couple of years and how it's going to transform and where do we think this is going and which brands are going to really be good at this, like the kinds of brands that are going to be able to, how do they take advantage of this and do the best types of things as opposed to, like to your other point, stop talking to me. I don't need brands talking to me all the time.
Yeah, I was, as part of that, I was curious and sitting here with Twitter and Facebook representatives to get their take on the proliferation of messaging platforms happening right now, building out bots, building out microservices into that, invisible apps. How do you see that competing with your platform or working with your platform? I mean, I know Facebook Messenger has started to incorporate microservices from Uber and things like that, but there's a whole new ecosystem around Slack, HipChat, all these others that are really creating communication portals that people are interacting on every day. And so it's really interesting to see how that's evolving, especially just the past 6 months. There's been a huge evolution in those platforms. I don't know the answer to what the future is, but there's some really interesting things going on there and some really creative ideas of how we can start to engage with clients by building custom bots and delivering messages and then doing e-commerce in those platforms as well. So,
You want to address that?
I don't have any answers. I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff out.
The messaging use cases through the roof. WhatsApp, over 1 billion actives. Facebook Messenger, over 800 million, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, you have WeChat and Kakao and various others doing very well. I think the way how we're thinking about this from a brand's point of view is probably to start off, what we're recommending right now to brands is start off by turning the messaging functionality on your page. So when we were growing up, if you had a question of a brand or you wanted to, had a query or a complaint or a compliment or whatever it might be, you would write in, you would email in, you would phone the 800 number or whatever it might be. And these days, that's not the use case. People are expecting some kind of a reasonably instant response. And so it's just a simple matter, as it always is, of our clients evolving to how people's communication use cases. So what we're saying is turn messaging on. Now, when the messenger gets turned on your page, it gives an indication of how quickly the brand will respond. And that's absolutely critical to people's appetite for engaging. Because if it says, welcome to Will's page, Will typically responds in, 3 to 9 weeks, no one's interested. When it says typically responds in 3 hours or 7 minutes or 24 hours, okay, well, that's good. So people are interested in hearing from me. And what we're finding out is where people turn messaging on their pages, there's a huge amount of inbound stuff. And sort of 60 to 70% we're finding of the inbound messaging volume, this is a generalization, is around questions about the products, the brands, and services. Is this the right shampoo for my hair type? Is this the right, my child weighs this amount, my child weighs this amount, what is the right diaper for me to use? Where can I find this type of product? Is this gluten-free? There's a huge amount of inbound, which is right now unmet. And so what we're saying is turn messaging on, start to learn and understand what people are interested in, and that'll help you structure how you start ultimately to migrate messaging on into a different ways, maybe some commercial channels. You know, we're out, we've demoed some stuff, as we've said, with a couple of retailers on the West Coast to look at commerce through messaging. As you say, you know, Uber is turned on. I think always an instructive place to look is to spend some time looking at WeChat in China, and their messaging is almost everything. So that would be my thought on that.
Yeah, on Twitter, the messaging between consumers and brands has for a long time been really driven by customer service. Customer service, I would argue that, I mean, a lot of people argue that Twitter's the most transformative force in customer service since the 800 number, right? We're seeing a lot of brands moving more and more manpower behind their teams to drive public conversations, public questions about their brand that are happening or the service on our platform to a private venue to deal with that via DM. And that's why we've seen customer service.
What's DM?
Would you say it goes down in the DM?
Direct messaging.
We got any?
Sorry, it was a little insidery there. Direct messaging is private messaging on Twitter that you can do one-on-one with people, or you can do within a group. So consumers are using it to have group conversations, share videos, have, you know, tongue-in-cheek GIF exchanges, or share public tweets in a private setting. So you want to be snarky about a tweet that you just read, but you can't do it because you're scared that someone's watching. You can then take that into DM and tell your friend, oh my gosh, can you believe XYZ said that? But brands, as I mentioned, you know, customer service has been a huge driver of our platform and brand adoption, but we are making it even easier for brands to take some of those conversations out of the public arena and into a one-on-one basis behind closed doors, and have recently made it so that with one click, a brand can invite a customer to have a private conversation to resolve the issue, to get any personal information, to help them service the issue. And there's huge cost efficiencies from a brand perspective. We've seen brands, you know, cut costs down to a sixth of a call center interaction versus a Twitter customer service interaction. So I think that brand and consumer messaging is alive and well today when it comes to customer service. And as we see that evolve, it's going to still have to really revolve around value of a brand, how a brand helps you in some way or provides some moment of utility in your life to earn that one-on-one conversation.
How many people in the room got that joke I just made a minute ago?
I didn't get
Okay,
it.
so we got a couple of people who are Yo Gotti fans. Yo Gotti fans. All right, good. Yo Gotti is a rapper from Atlanta. He has a song called It Goes Down in the DM. It's about sending private messages to people that you're trying to hook up with, whether or not you or they are in a relationship. It's a vernacular thing, but it's a huge club record, and it's the kind of shit that if any brand is working in DM space, they should be at the very least cursorily familiar with. Anybody in the room ever received or sent an eggplant emoji? All right, same guy. I like that. This guy, okay, so my suggestion is if you're a brand in the room and you want to work through direct...
What does an eggplant
Oh, Jesus
emoji
Christ.
represent? I don't understand this.
That's amazing.
Acronyms,
All right, I love that.
emojis, what are
Okay,
they?
so guys, the point is there's a language that all of these spaces embody and represent, and which change dramatically minute to minute, second to second, audience to audience. And if you're a brand and you don't speak that audience, or you don't speak that language and you don't know what the liabilities are, you're going to end up sending an eggplant to somebody that shouldn't get it. And that person's going to be offended, and that person's going to write your board of directors, and that person is going to cause your shareholder value to decrease. So find somebody who's native in the language Find somebody who speaks the language of the kids or the moms or the senior citizens or whomever it is, and make sure that they're in charge of your messaging, because otherwise... What does that mean? No. Sorry, I'm 40, and anybody younger than me is a kid, so that's the way this works. But the point simply being, you have to speak to your audience in the language they speak to each other in direct messaging or any other place.
Predictions, right? That's what we were talking about before, so bringing it back to that. So I feel as though that sort of intersection between brand and reputation, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Reputation, what people are already saying about you. Brand, what we're talking about here, like we're messaging at folks, right? So I feel like the messaging platforms are going to help inform a lot of the companies with regards to what the tone should be, what the voice should be in, and more companies are going to be measuring what that reputation is before they jump into something like that. So using the tech to really get a better understanding of what the landscape is before anything else, so that the brand can be a little bit more empathetic going into these different platforms. So
There's another one for Vice. You guys have like a really
You're so chagrined. It's okay.
You've got this. You guys went backwards. You started, and I got to give credit.
I knew I was
gotta
gonna
give
get
credit to
exposed
Cattleman,
here.
'cause he really. This is really Cattleman's idea. You guys went backwards. You guys started it in analog and print, and then you went to digital, and now you're going to TV, whereas usually it's the other way around. So, can you talk to us a little bit about like how you're appealing to brands with what we were talking about before in that kind of damn it, that's $1. That way where you guys are going to be, where's the value that you're showing for brands now, and how do the Twitters and the Facebooks and the agencies all take kind of advantage of that?
Well, I mean, look, I think the move backwards is, of course, not true and not accurate.
I didn't mean backwards. I just meant like
No,
it's
no.
unusual.
But look, we take that as a not a challenge exactly, but we want to just simply point out the fallacy of that logic, which is that Vice from the very beginning is about putting content in front of people wherever they wanted to consume it, right? You still have, though the numbers are changing a lot, you still have a gigantic audience of 18 to 34-year-olds in particular, but just people in general who are watching television, right? So if we want to be storytellers, we should be on television as well as on mobile phones, as well as on desktops, as well as in the room here with you, as well as, on platforms as yet to be devised. So we're going to always do that. The other advantage to video as a general medium is that sight, sound, and motion create all of these different places where you can derive collateral value, collateral materials out of. And I think for us, the eminent value of our setup is that we say, brands, let's make a piece of creative that lives over here and is intended and perhaps most native here, but let's use our expertise using Facebook, using Twitter, using Instagram, using Snapchat, using platforms as yet to be defined to push that content out to the audiences that want to use that platform as the place to receive the stories that they then transmit into cultural capital, and which makes them more valuable within their sort of friend groups. So it's a really simple proposition. It's like we want to create a toolbox for you that has a whole bunch of different assets in it that you can use wherever it's most appropriate. And some of those are going to be right on brand. Some of those are going to be right in the voice of the audience. And hopefully we find a sweet spot in the middle that helps push your narrative forward at the same time as it really engages the audience.
Twitter and Facebook, are you guys thinking about how to work with these guys? And what's the thought process and when you guys decide to strategize around it?
We definitely at Twitter are big fans of what Vice are doing, and have a whole program in place through our Amplify program to connect our brand partners with incredible media companies, either as a source of content or as a way to distribute their pre-roll sort of as a writer content to some of the amazing content that the Vices of the world create. So definitely, I think the reality of today is there are more and more sources of content, may that be an influencer or a publisher or users themselves, regular people, in addition to the incredible brand creative that the agency community has been making forever. And there's an appetite for all of it. So we definitely are trying to create more and more relationships with publishers like Vice.
Yeah, I mean, same same answer. I think Vice have built a deserved reputation as being very good at creating that content and actually building it to be rendered in a way that people are discovering it. So it will become television. It has historically been other forms. You know, for us, we're a mobile business. When you hit the blue app on your phone, the algorithm's looking from 1,400 available stories for you. It's looking to find the most relevant stories for you now. And the algorithm will always reward disproportionately relevant, appropriate, rendered for mobile content, which Vice have built a reputation for doing a very good job at.
Well, thank you guys all for coming today. As a closing, I guess you guys kind of dodged this question, and I want to make sure you guys can't dodge it. How are you guys going to monetize the live aspect of your guys' platforms?
Can I just start? Okay. So we are going to make a news show for HBO, and HBO is going to pay us to make it, and that's going to serve their subscribers, and it's going to serve the wider universe, and that's how we're going to do it.
We'll figure it out. What was always been a good guiding light for us is where you have great consumer engagement and people are spending more time and it's finding it of a value-added utility on the platform. The monetization will always follow that. We need to get this right before we move on to that. That's always served us well.
Can you answer the question, though? Just one idea. Just one idea on how you might monetize it. I just want one.
How might we monetize that? Well, I don't think we're going to be looking to charge any more for it in the feed. So right now, your display ads or your static page post ads and your video cost exactly the same for you to run in the feed. So I don't see us doing like that. It's conceivable. Maybe if you have a particularly long piece of content, in the same way as with television, people want to take breaks. There might be advertising opportunities within that, but we really don't know. We'll look at the consumer use case long and hard. We'll test some different things on a small scale. It's always we're very predictable like this. We'll test it on a small scale. We'll see whether it works. We'll see whether it adds value. We'll see whether it, most importantly, detracts value, and we'll make our decisions based on that.
Yep. Periscope right now doesn't have any paid slots or ways to promote your brand Periscope on Periscope. That being said, we've already started to test using Periscope as a source for promoted video. So Doritos, for example, largely thanks to OMD, thanks guys, were able to, as a very early partner, an alpha partner, they were the first ever to promote video during the Super Bowl, and then the video asset was live video via Periscope. So that was really cool, and we hope to be doing more of that. But again, it's test and learn. It's a very, very new platform. So hopefully we'll see more activations like that down the road.
I'll answer real quick. So we help our clients monetize by leveraging all the tools available to us to create a service-oriented architecture and then create what that user experience is going to be on top of that. And it's leveraging all of this data, all this content, and it's leveraging all their own data, especially when it comes to connected devices and IoT. And you think about, I've dealt with a couple of connected devices companies lately, and they capture all that information but have no idea what to do with it. And so I think that's really where our services come in our experience.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys take advantage of intent. Like, obviously, it's, Uber, it's when I'm messaging, I'm in the mood to do something or get something. So the feed or whatever that data and information is with the idea of intent, what are you going to do with that, and how are you going to take care of people in the moment through partners or whatever else, through messaging or otherwise. So that would be interesting to see. I want that now.
Well, thanks for putting up with me today, guys. I really appreciate it. Can everybody give these guys a big round of applause? Super Suckers are up next. I want you guys going out in the street and bringing people in. I want this room packed. So go out there. You got a job to do. We'll see you in 20 minutes. Thanks.